car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
And welcome. You are watching The Attorneys. I'm Art Franklin. So glad to have you with us. We are revisiting a topic that we have done before, but it sparked a lot of interest and a lot of questions from our viewers out there. Car accidents, what you should do. And we're going to get into that. We're going to unpack that for you again in a whole different way. But we want to remind you that right now, lawyers at Hollis Wright are standing by to take your call. It's 1-844-LAW-TALK. That's 1-844-LAW-TALK. You can reach an attorney at Hollis Wright. It is a free call. It is a confidential call. They'll be manning the phones throughout the show. Josh, it's so good to see you again, buddy.
You too. I hope you had a great week.
I did, indeed.
So we're going to unwrap a little bit today, really kind of the personal injury process, and we'll talk a little bit about what to do after accidents, but just a little bit about what the process is and what happens when a client comes to a lawyer's office and has questions about, hey, do I have a potential cause of action? Gloria Sellers has been on before. She's on again. Not only is she, I was going to say this, not only is she an incredible lawyer in this area, she has the greatest smile of anybody I think we ever have on the show. It's so good to have you on. You're always happy. I've never seen you not happy, which I love.
Thank you.
That's a good quality in a lawyer, too.
Yes.
All right, tell us just a little bit about your practice and kind of how you got into this area of the law and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so once again, my name is Attorney Gloria Sellers. My law practice is Sellers Law Group here in Birmingham. We specialize in personal injury cases, which of course we both know as lawyers there's different types of personal injury cases. And so what we do here, we mostly do auto accident cases, trucking accidents, things of that nature. I got into this realm, honestly, when I was in law school. I worked for another injury lawyer as his paralegal, and I kind of learned what I needed to learn. When I passed the bar, I opened my own.
You were ready to roll.
Yes, so that's how I got into that realm.
I have been lucky enough to be with the same person for roughly 20 years who has served in that role and has now gone to law school. And I'm real excited about her future because she's learned from the ground up how to practice law, and I think that's invaluable.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to experience that, and you see the work of your mentor. I'm sure she considers you a mentor. So you see the hard work that your mentor put in, and you just can't wait to get your hand in that and change people's lives how they did.
All right, so let's take this topic and unwrap it a little bit. Explain a little bit about what we're talking about today, and let's kind of get into it.
Yeah, so I guess it depends on what kind of personal injury case, first and foremost. Like, if we're talking about auto accidents, of course, we are picking up the phones, people who are in total shock that they have been injured in this accident. And so what we do, our job is to, one, guide them and help them to understand the process. So first and foremost, more than likely I would tell them, hey, did you call the police after the accident and get a police report done? Very important, because that police report is going to have information that the attorney will need to call the insurance company and things of that nature. So first and foremost, make sure you call the police at the scene of the accident. Do not leave. Call the police. And then second, most of them are injured. So we're going to tell them, hey, did you seek medical treatment? Now, sometimes that can be a fight for lawyers because a lot of people try to say they don't feel injuries until a while later, but no, go to the ER, get checked out, make sure you're okay. And while they're doing that, of course, we're going to file the claims and get those property damages and bodily injury claims started for them. And,
you know, it's super complicated, but it's also super easy. Super easy to go get to a lawyer, right? But what the lawyer does that you don't recognize are, and Gloria started to touch on this, it's more complicated. It is, I need to find out what insurances are applicable. Does that person have uninsured motorist coverage? Do they only have liability coverage? Is the person that caused the accident just liability coverage? I've got to put them on notice. Do I need to go preserve vehicles so that I can get an investigator out there to go take pictures of the vehicle?
Yes.
Did the person have pictures that were taken at the time of the accident, how will that impact it? Do I need to go talk to witnesses? I need to get the case opened. Like we could do an entire show just about the case open process and what you do to make sure that you've protected the client. At the end of the day, this is what Gloria does for a living, and you need to have somebody that knows what A to Z looks like in getting a case open and getting a case started. Now, one of the things I did want to ask you about is this. I have felt in my practice that good evidence from photos, video, documentation, in other ways, potential witness statements, those things can turn a low-grade case into a high-grade case.
Absolutely.
Do you see that in your practice?
Yes, because one of the main things that we focus on when we're formulating what we call a demand package to go over to the insurance company, we look at the impact level of the accident. And sometimes a police report does not accurately depict what level this accident may have been, from worst to oh my God. And so those pictures though that a client will take at the scene will kind of give us an indication, well, this was not a small impact accident. Yeah. This was very severe. And so we've kind of faced that in our practice, where we see clients sometimes forget to take those photos, and it does impact their case negatively sometimes.
Yeah,
Excuse me. Doesn't happen every day, but it happens sometimes.
But you guys are kind of walking through the process, and Gloria, as you started down that road, and Josh continued on. Let me add to that. What information should the parties exchange with the other party when they're involved in an accident?
Yes, so that's if the other driver actually wants to talk to our client, because sometimes they don't even want to speak to them, they just want to speak directly to the police that comes to the scene. But if you are fortunate enough to have a conversation with the person who hit you, one of the things you need to get, of course, is their name. You need to get their insurance information, the policy number, because sometimes officers at the scene do not write those policy numbers down correctly. So if you can get a picture of their ID card or their auto insurance card, that will be just the best thing ever, because we will know which insurance company we're calling, but also we got the accurate information as well.
So it sounds like you're not obligated to talk to them, and they're not obligated to talk to you.
Unfortunately, no.
Right. Okay.
No.
Talk to me too about when you're done with the scene, you've sought medical care, you finally are home. Oftentimes you're going to get called from an insurance company quickly.
Yes.
And what are the do's and don'ts related to that?
So the do's and don'ts, it's perfectly fine to talk to them about property damage, because most time injury lawyers, we find ourselves as the middleman with the property damage claim, and the client can really handle that themselves. Yeah. But as far as the bodily injury, insurance company have this sneaky thing they do where they slide in like a pre-offer to try to settle your bodily injury claim, and that usually is $1,500, $3,500, whatever they feel they can get you to sign for. Please avoid that. Avoid conversations about your injuries, period, because I don't like being the lawyer on an injury case and you gave a recorded statement about your injuries. Sometimes that's hard to get around if you said the wrong thing. So I would say do not talk to them about your injuries.
Yeah, and Gloria makes a great point, but insurance adjusters are incentivized to do what they can to investigate and evaluate the accident, and to the extent that they can establish that the victim contributed to the accident, it reduces the value of the case, and could, under Alabama law, with contributory negligence as an absolute defense, could eliminate a case. So be careful talking with an insurance company before you have an opportunity to consult with a lawyer. And it's just as simple to say to them, hey, look, I think I want to get a lawyer. I'd like to talk with a lawyer before I give a statement. And let the lawyer get involved. And by the way, sometimes Gloria and I allow our clients to give statements after we tell them a little bit about what the statement is.
Okay.
If we can get the defendant to give a statement too.
Exactly.
Right? Because we want them both. Let's speed this process up. So anyways, we can talk more about unwrapping this topic. We could do a week's worth of this topic.
That's why you have come to the right place, because you've got the smart attorneys right here. Hollis, Wright, Gloria joining us on the set today. So thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you too that there are attorneys standing by right now to take your call. It's a free confidential call to Hollis, Wright at 1-844 Law Talk, 1-844-LAW-TALK. We're going to continue to unpack this conversation on car accidents, what you should do when the attorneys return right after this.
Here's some good information from our firm to you. Hollis Wright recently launched the Law Talk podcast. With podcasts becoming so popular, this will be a simple way to provide our loyal viewers with more opportunities to access information about important legal topics and to learn more about our firm and how we can help you if the need ever arises. There are many ways to access the Law Talk podcast. You can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Also, episodes are always available on the Hollis Wright YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just search up Hollis Wright in the Law Talk podcast. Don't wait, take advantage and listen today. Thanks for watching The Attorneys, and we know you'll enjoy the Law Talk podcast.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Addiction kills hope.
But at Bradford, it all changes here.
Experience the difference
that proven treatment can make.
Find recovery. Find community.
at Bradford.
Welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys. I want to remind you that we are scrolling some useful information down at the bottom of your screen. You'll see that throughout the show. We'd like to give that information to you as well. There's also a QR code. There's so many ways that you can get in contact with lawyers at Hollis Wright, including the number 1-844-LAW-TALK, 1-844-LAW-TALK. And we're talking about car accidents, what we should do. That's the topic of this show. Gloria Sellers is with us. I just want to know, Gloria, should you start with the insurance company when you, at the very beginning of the process, at the origin of everything?
Yes, so I would advise any injured party, you can definitely place your insurance company on notice. I would recommend you place the other party's insurance company on notice first. If it's a clear-cut case that, you know, they were in the wrong, definitely put their insurance company on notice, but there is no harm in putting your insurance company on notice either.
So right after that call to police, insurance.
If you're not, scrolled away in an ambulance, I would say definitely put, your insurance company on notice.
Now, do you see circumstances where someone is involved in what appears to be a pretty significant accident? Mm-hmm. They do not manifest major issues other than maybe, hey, look, my neck is sore, my back is sore, I've got tingling in an appendage in an arm or a leg. And then as they continue to have these issues, their body relaxes a little bit over a couple days. They go get an MRI and all of a sudden they have a herniated disc that requires surgery. We see that all the time.
We see that all the time, which is why I express definitely go to the ER. You may feel okay, you may take some over-the-counter medicine and thinking that will work, but you never really know what's going on internally until you go get those imaging tests done. So I always recommend that you get, treatment right away, but not just any treatment, extensive treatment to make sure everything is perfectly fine.
What do you, explain how you handle when it's time to put a demand package together? What information are you gathering to be able to get a demand package together for the client to the at-fault carrier, and sometimes that doesn't happen immediately. It takes some time, doesn't it?
It does. So what I like to tell clients is that we really don't start talking settlement until all relevant medical treatment is done, because what we do not like to do as injury lawyers, we don't like to send things in bits and pieces that can kind of get lost in the shuffle when it comes to the true value of your case. So we make sure that we have your medical records with all necessary medical diagnosis information, your medical bills, and what clients also don't know, lost wages. If you miss time from work, give us something in writing from your employer showing that time that you missed, so we can include all this stuff in the value of your injury claim. It matters. It really matters.
Yeah, and one of the other things I was going to talk about is you just mentioned, looking at vocational loss and loss of time at work. But in addition to that, there are some other things that you may look at and look for as a lawyer related to how to put this demand package together, and that can include things like whether or not you've lost opportunities, mental anguish, pain and suffering, the embarrassment of having to go through this process, the frustration and stress of that. All those things are compensable that you can put together in a demand package that goes to the adjuster eventually.
So a good injury lawyer is always going to ask you, how did your day-to-day lifestyle change because of this accident? We're going to want to know if you used to go to the park with your child at a certain time every day, but since the accident you can't. Those are the things that matter to us to put into your demand letter to let the insurance company know, like, no, your insured changed the course of our client's life, and this is what happened. And those are the things that add to the value of pain and suffering and things of that nature.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, are there red flags to look for when dealing with an insurance adjuster?
Ooh.
It's a good question.
I don't know if I want to say insurance adjusters, but more than I want to say than the certain insurance company.
Okay.
Sometimes I think I've learned how to read police reports well to kind of know what kind of policy we may be dealing with. And when I say that, an example would be if the defendant was driving a certain model of car, like an older vehicle, 9 out of 10, I know that we're dealing with a minimum policy case in Alabama. And minimum policy, of course, is $25,000. And while I may not tell the client that just yet, I do kind of have those instincts as an injury lawyer to know how to gauge whether or not we need to pursue underinsured motorist coverage for a client.
And we've done entire shows on uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, but the simple issue is if you have that coverage, it could be additional coverage that you can compensate yourself for or family members for if you've been injured by someone that doesn't have sufficient insurance, or in the unlikely circumstance they have no insurance whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Which does happen all the time. And so, uninsured motorist coverage is critically important. It's another reason why you want someone like Gloria to be able to evaluate your entire case to make sure that you understand what coverages are applicable and whether you can stack certain coverages to evaluate a case.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
All right, so when we come back, I know we're getting ready to go to break here, but when we come back, I do want to talk a little bit just generally about the process you use when a client comes in, how contracts work, how someone can get the same benefit of legal service on our side of the bar as they can if they were a defendant in a case, and just talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Perfect.
All right, as we head to break, I want to remind you about something that's very important as well. That's all of the social media platforms that you can find Hollis Wright, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter. All of those places you can find good information, good content throughout the week from Hollis Wright. We invite you to follow us, share it, like it, and you'll get that good information there. Also want to remind you about that number I gave you earlier in the show. Those attorneys are standing by. They man the phones throughout the program. It's 1-844-LAW-TALK. 1-844-LAW-TALK. It's a free confidential call. Go ahead and make that call right now. We're going to continue this conversation on car accidents and what you should do when we come back here on The Attorneys.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW-TALK and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
If this place could talk, it wouldn't. It would sing and celebrate all of our stories of addiction recovery, victory, and community. This is Bradford Health Services. It all changes here.
Welcome back to The Attorneys. Thanks so much for sticking around with us as we're talking about car accidents and what you should do. We've got a very special guest with us, Gloria Sellers. We thank you so much for being with us. Josh, I want to just jump right into this question about how does a person's medical records actually impact their case and what steps they should take when men involved in an accident.
Okay, so medical records really give injury lawyers an indication of what level of personal injury case we're dealing with. For instance, if a medical records come across my desk and I see a fracture, then I know we're dealing with a case that is a little bit more high value versus then seeing, just kind of soft tissue or someone who has scoliosis and things of that nature. So I would say the medical records is definitely, we depend on the doctors to definitely do their job and put the right diagnosis in those medical records, because we report back to the insurance adjusters to let them know, like, hey, this is the kind of case that we're dealing with. And most insurance adjusters, if they're doing their job properly, will be in contact with you anyway, normally every 30 days to kind of know what kind of injury your client is actually going through from this accident.
All right, so you've put the demand package together, you've gone through that process, gotten all the medical records, talked with the client, you've put it all together, you submit it, you negotiate for a period, and then you recognize, you get to a stalemate, if you will, or a point where you recognize they're not willing to pay what this case is worth. Tell us a little bit about that next process, how that goes.
Yeah, so what I like to tell clients is that everything we do up front is what we call pre-litigation. Yep. You have not sued anyone. But let's just say we do get to the point where the insurance company is just not budging. They got a set amount, normally what they call a top and final offer. If they do not want to move, that is your chance to file an official lawsuit against the other person. And that litigation process can be lengthy. I am very transparent with clients about that. Sometimes it could take a year, sometimes 3 years, because we're at the mercy of the court a lot for important deadlines. So I do inform them it can be lengthy.
And that litigation process can be invasive. You have generally a responsibility to put yourself up for a sworn statement called a deposition. And the defendant probably is going to do that too. They get to ask a lot of questions about your background, your history, your criminal record, all those things that are material and relevant in a traditional case. I have clients all the time say, I don't understand why that's relevant, and I have to explain to them it's relevant because when you file a lawsuit, you put your veracity and truth-telling, especially if there are circumstances in the accident where issues could be viewed both ways, or the officer created an accident report where it could be viewed both ways. Veracity becomes super important. So it's an invasive process that can take some time. Talk to me just for a second about, and I know you've seen this before, client comes to you and says, hey, look, the accident report is wrong. And here is a picture or a video or something that I can prove it's wrong. How do you handle those circumstances?
So I still pursue the case. And what I advise them to do, and this is such a pain, but report that police officer, whoever did the report, but also go down in person to the precinct and try to get that amended. Get the police report amended. Now, that is a process within itself. I cannot be dishonest about that. But most times my clients are able and they're successful with getting those police reports amended. And
even if you're not able to get it amended, I mean, think about it this way. It's not like the police officers are coming to submit a false report, right? They are only limited to the information that we have. And a great example may be you're injured, went to the hospital, the police officers there can't take a statement from you, took one from the other party, and the other party says, I did not run the red light. You know, it was their fault. And all of a sudden, the police report gets written up. Even if the police report is not amended, the officer knows in the back of his mind, this person came to talk to me that said there may be issues. That testimony that you're going to get could be more favorable when you ultimately take his deposition. And then it's the responsibility of the lawyer to try and convince the officer at the time of that deposition that he was limited with the information he had. But here is police intersection camera footage. Here is an eyewitness that we've talked with and what they said here, where you may get an officer to say, absolutely, I would amend that report based on those factors. And it could change the complexity of the case, turn it from a questionable liability case to a clear liability case. But I promise you this, you're not going to do it without finding somebody like Gloria to do that and walk you through that process.
You know, as you were going through that, I was thinking about who determines, a couple things, who determines who's at fault? Because there's a lot of finger pointing going on at the scene of an accident. And then also, what evidence is really needed to build a strong case?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what we were saying about the importance of taking photos at the accident scene, because sometimes the impact point on a vehicle can be a clear indication of what happened in this accident. But if we don't have photos to go by, that can be a little sticky because it's just a he said, she said situation. But most time also the police report, although it's complete hearsay, most time it's an indicator on who's at fault as well. So that's why it's important also to call the police at the scene, so you do get some form of indication of what happened here in writing that we can kind of go off of.
Does it matter who talks first to the police officer?
No, not necessarily.
The police officer is generally going to get you separated, and they're generally going to ask you one at a time what happened, and then draw some conclusions. And especially if there's a witness that hung around. I mean, I've had circumstances where a witness was in a hurry, left a business card, and wrote on the back, "I witnessed this accident," put it on a vehicle where the officer had that, looked at it, and called the person and said, "You should have stayed, but thank you for leaving a card. Tell me what you saw." And things like that happen. And lawyers do a good job, both on the plaintiff side and also on the defense side, of being able to unwrap really what happened and what the circumstances of this accident were. And then it's our role as lawyers sometimes to dig deeper. Think about this. Texting and driving has become super relevant, right? Oh, my gosh. There are a lot of circumstances where you can download a black box in a vehicle and people didn't even hit their brakes and slammed into the back of someone from behind. Well, that doesn't happen unless you're not paying attention. So why was the person not paying attention? Those are all examples of parts of the investigation that we use.
Absolutely.
And I know you see that all the time.
All the time. I cannot tell you. And honestly, what I also have to explain to clients is, yeah, you had a passenger in your vehicle, but that's technically not an independent witness. So we can't use their statement to kind of corroborate what you have said took place in this accident. So be mindful that a passenger is not an independent witness.
That's right.
So.
But they still can be helpful. They still can be helpful. If you, in an accident, get to someone that handles cases like Gloria, this is just such a great topic.
Yeah, this has been very helpful, Gloria. Thank you so much for
good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us once again here on The Attorneys. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we hope you make a date to be back with us again next week.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.